सारी जन्नत में रसूले अज़ली लिखा है, सारी जन्नत में रसूले अज़ली लिखा है, डाली डाली पे अली और वली लिखा है, सब पत्तों पे हसन और कली पर ज़हरा, सुर्ख व फूलों पे हुसैन इब्ने अली लिखा है। सारी जन्नत में रसूल अज़ली लिखा है, डाली डाली पे अली और वली लिखा है, सब पत्तों पे हसन और कली पर ज़हरा, सुर्ख फूलों पे हुसैन इब्ने अली लिखा है।
Provider of believers and unbelievers, and may his choicest blessings be on the seal of his prophets, the last of his messengers and his holy progeny, and in particular may his incessant blessings ever continue to flow on that last successor to the holy prophet, on the Imam of our current time, on Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, Ajjalallahu farajahu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. We have been discussing last evening on various proofs that enable us inevitably to come to the conclusion that the Imam alayhi salam is in existence in Ghaibah. And indeed, the Imam alayhi salam operates from Ghaibah, and we have discussed those golden words of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny, that even when he is behind the clouds, he benefits the earth as the sun benefits the earth when it is behind the clouds. Well, we saw over the last 10 years or so that each Imam alayhi salam in his era performed manifest miracles well recorded in our books. Does that operate with the 12th Imam alayhi salam, or is Ghaibah a hindrance? And the obvious answer has to be that Ghaibah would not be a hindrance, because if it was, the words of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny, would not have come true. Well, if it is not a hindrance, do we have any recorded evidence of miracles performed by him? And I wish in discussing that to say this, that our books are filled with volumes of miracles. We have, but now even not an hour, about 55 minutes at our disposal, and obviously we cannot discuss a number of them. But I have selected a few specimens, just as we did with the previous Imams alayhimus salam, few specimens of illustrations of the kind of miracles he also performed. And I want to start with one which we saw performed by a number of our Imams alayhimus salam. We saw that kind of miracle performed by the 4th Imam, by the 6th Imam, by the 7th Imam alayhimus salam, a number of them having performed that kind of miracle. Has he performed miracles of that nature also? And the one I wish to pick on is the one in which our Imams alayhimus salam, when asked for help and did not have funds with them, were able to convert earth into gold and give the gold to the seeker of help. That is manifested with the 12th Imam alayhi salam also. And it is reported by Sheikh Kulaini alayhi rahmah, one of our most authentic narrators, and also reported by Ibn Shahr Ashub, that a person from Madain was in Arafah, on the grounds of Arafah, during the period of Hajj. And they were seated, wanting to occupy themselves in prayer, and suddenly they found that a youthful person, brilliant looking person, came and sat next to them. They turned to him and looked at him. He would not look at them. They could not identify him, but they certainly knew, and they could feel his presence, that this was a learned man, a brilliant man, a man of capacity, a man of knowledge. But they did not have the courage to turn and speak to him. Suddenly, a person comes along asking for help, and asked this gentleman from Madain for help. And the gentleman from Madain refused to give him any help. So he asked his companions, and they refused to give him help. And so he went to this gentleman, this youthful gentleman. He was dressed in his ihram with just 2 garments, and did not have a pocket. So he could not have provided him money either. So it appeared to these gentlemen from Madain. This man put his case in a very pleading way, and seeking help from this youthful person. And all that he did was, he scratched the earth, and they all saw him do it, picked up the earth, closed his palm, and then with his closed palm, just as Imam Rada alayhi salam did, just as Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did, as we have already seen in the past, with his clenched palm, handed things to this man, who received it with his 2 hands, because his 1 hand was not enough to receive it. When he received it with 2 hands, he also clenched his palm immediately. And that done, this youthful person immediately stands up. He does not want to be there. He does not want to be thanked. And we have seen this repeatedly in miracles of the 12th Imam alayhi salam, in meetings, that he does not like even to be thanked after a favor he has done. La nuridu minkum jaza'an wala shukura. Those words of Surah Dahr you can see operating with meticulous accuracy with regard to the conduct of the 12th Imam alayhi salam also. He immediately stands up before this person is able to move and disappears. The people from Madain say he was standing next to us. He was there no more. We couldn't see him. He didn't move from there. We didn't see him going in any direction. Suddenly he was not there. We were astounded. We asked that man, where is he? The one who has given you whatever he has given you. And he says, I wanted to thank him. And he is not there at all. So the gentleman from Madain says, look, we've got to know what he has given you. Because all he picked was earth. He says, yes, but what I have received is not earth. This is why I'm clinching. So they made him open his palm, and they saw ingots of gold in his hands, full of gold. They took that and went to have it weighed, and they found that it weighed 2 mithqal. His man says, enough for the sustenance of my family for a number of years. All I told him was that I had no sustenance for my family, and here he has given me generously. We have seen this kind of miracle performed repeatedly, as I said, and you can see instances of how he also performed exactly that kind of miracle. But a second example that I want quickly to touch on, only to show consistency of the methods of miracles with previous Imams alayhimus salam, and we saw this with Salt bin Rayyan, with 8th Imam alayhi salam, we saw this with 6th Imam alayhi salam, with various Imams alayhimus salam. Not to take your time on those matters. So true with the 12th Imam alayhi salam. And this hadith comes from Hassan bin Fadl. He says, I wanted to write a letter to him to seek answers to 3 questions. I posed my 2 questions, and then I felt a little ashamed to ask the 3rd question. I felt it was not worthy of him in his standing and stature that I should ask him a question of this nature. So I did not. But I did not know the answer to it. I wanted to know the answer to it, but I did not have the courage to put it on paper. So I completed the letter, put my seal on it, and gave it to Hussein ibn Ruh and said, you dispatch this to the 12th Imam alayhi salam. And the letter went. In due course, a reply comes. But when the reply comes, he sets the reply to the first question and to the second question. And then adds saying, the answer to the third question, which you hesitated to ask, is as follows, and provided the answer to the third question also. We've known from Salt bin Rayan how he would ask questions of Imam Rada alayhi salam, how he would seek help from Imam Rada alayhi salam. He would seek 2 things out of 3, he would forget the third, and the Imam alayhi salam would call him back and says, Abu Salt, you have forgotten the third request. Here it is. This is what you are asking for. You find identical situation with the 12th Imam alayhi salam. The third example I want to give you is even more classic than the example that I have so far cited with the other Imams alayhi salam. And this episode is reported by Sheikh Tusi alayhi rahmah. He says that Ali ibn Abu Babawayya writes a letter to the 12th Imam alayhi salam, again in the time of Hussein ibn Ruh, and says, I am very desirous of having sons, of having a son, 2 sons, as you think fit to pray to Allah, glorified and exalted, who would be servants of faith, who would be good servants to serve the faith and to serve you and serve Allah, glorified and exalted. I am not able to achieve this myself. I seek your help, and I seek you to pray for me so that I have a son or 2 sons or whatever you think fit in having the qualities I have described. Delivers the letter. In due course he receives a reply. He receives a reply saying, yes, I have already prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will grant you 2 sons, both of whom will be learned scholars, both of whom will serve the faith as you desire them to serve, and both of them will leave progeny. So you can now see, he gives even more than what the seeker asked from him. And he says not only that, but they will leave progeny who will also serve the faith as they served. And name the first Ahmad, and name the second son Hussein. He even suggested the names of these sons. Immediately he says, I married a lady, and truly I had 2 sons. The first of them is Ibn Babawayya himself, the one who is the author of Man La Yahdharul Faqih, of our 4 authentic books. The first, of course, is the one I just cited, Al-Kafi. Al-Kafi, the first leading book written in the Ghaibat-e-Sughra, or at the end part of Ghaibat-e-Sughra, commencement of Ghaibat-e-Kubra by Sheikh Kulaini alayhi rahmah. And the second book is of Ibn Babawayya, of Man La Yahdharul Faqih, one who does not have a faqih. In other words, a compendium of all matters of fiqh set out together, so that if you cannot go to an alim and have a question, you are most likely to find your answer in that particular book. The second most authentic book. And his other son, Hussein, also became a learned scholar with books, and both left progeny who served the community well. So, abundant evidence of how he too performed miracles in exactly the same way. But that done in a quick manner, I hope. I want now to take you to the kind of miracles that are peculiar to him, that are unique to him because of his ghaibah. And the first hadith that I want to put across to you is relating to the situation immediately after the martyrdom of the 11th Imam alayhi salam. In other words, picking up from our discussions of last night. And that hadith also comes to us from Sheikh Tusi alayhi rahmah in his ghaibah that we discussed at the commencement of our sitting last night. And in that work, Sheikh Tusi alayhi rahmah reports this hadith from from Rathim. Rathim was a soldier in the army of Mu'taz. And he reports that one day Mu'taz called him. This is soon after the martyrdom of the 11th Imam alayhi salam, during the period when, as I said yesterday, they were conducting intensive search to find the successor to the 11th Imam alayhi salam, the only son he was known to have left, and murder him straight away, because he was feared to be the person who will topple the tyrants and the oppressors. And the Abbasides knew that they qualified for that treatment from him. So he calls Rasim and gives him 2 more people and tells him, accompany them to wherever they send you and do as they ask you to do. And Rasim, of course, obliged a cruel Khalif like Mu'taz. There was no other choice to him, and they galloped out. They got into Samara, and he says, when we got into the Samara, we came to the house of Hasan al-Askari, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. When we got there, we dismounted, and the orders were that we should get into the house and we should kill anybody we find in that house and take his head to Mu'taz. Well, they knew that they were looking for the 12th Imam alayhi salam, that they should assassinate him and take his head to Mu'taz. This is exactly the prize that Mu'taz wanted. And they all understood this. The orders were to obtain the head of anybody they saw in the house. There was no need even to identify the person. You can see the level to which tyranny and oppression ruled at the time in the hands of Mu'taz. He said, so when we came to the door, the first problem was to enter the house. How do we do that? And there was a watchman sitting outside. But when we got to the watchman, we saw him busy. Minor difference between 2 versions there. One says he was busy stitching his shoe. His shoe was broken, so he was stitching his shoe. Totally unconcerned by these people who had come to visit him. Another says that his trousers were torn, so he was busy stitching his trousers. But whatever that he was doing, both versions say, he had no time for these people. He was not concerned. He was more concerned about his stitching than guarding the doorway to the house of the Imam alayhi salam. These are Imams alayhi salam, as we have always seen over the years, who had faith in their protection in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not of these guardsmen. There were people who always says, Wallahu khayrun hafidha wa huwa arhamur rahimin. They had no concern about these watchmen, and the watchmen did not fear that they allowed people to go in. However, these people went to him and said, we want to go. Is there anybody in the house? And the watchman says, yes, of course there is somebody in the house. Very rudely. So he says, well, who is in the house? So he says, Sahibud Dar. That is the person who owns this house. One of the titles of the 12th Imam alayhi salam is Sahibud Dar. That is one of his titles that is known in the books as reference to him. That was a period in which people, Shias in particular, would not take the name of the 12th Imam alayhi salam, only to hide his identity, only so that those who are seeking to murder him should not be able to know where he is. So there was a dual meaning there when the watchman says Sahibud Dar. They interpreted it to mean the owner of the house, because this is all that they knew. Enough for them, because they were indeed looking for the owner of the house. That was the 12th Imam alayhi salam. And they were happy therefore to know that he is in the house. They just barged in, and the watchmen, they said, did nothing to stop them. When they entered, they saw a beautiful house, piously kept, absolutely clean, no trace of anything unclean or anything najis. And they saw that every door had a curtain. Now they were unable to move next. They decided they will go to the room which was facing them. So when they reached there, they opened the curtain. And when they opened the curtain, lo and behold, what do they see? They see water from end to end. The whole room was carpeted just with water. And on the water was a prayer mat, and there was a brilliant personality, young, youthful, saying his prayers. So when they opened the curtain, and they all were now at the threshold, they could not enter because there was water there. The person in prayer was totally unperturbed. He did not bother himself with anybody coming in or going out. He was intensely occupied in his worship and in his prayer. That quality we have always described of our Imam alayhimus salam, and the state in which they would be when they worship Allah exalted and glorified is exactly the state in which these enemies of the 12th Imam alayhi salam find him and come and report to us. Exactly that state. Whether it is the state of Hazrat Amir alayhi salam, whether it was the state of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, even in his prayers in Karbala, whether it is the state of Sayyid Sajjad alayhi salam, whether the state of Al-Baqir or Al-Sadiq, and indeed the state of Al-Kadhim alayhi salam that we discussed in the prison. One finds identical situation. Here are people who want to come in and murder him. He is totally unperturbed in his prayers. And Rafiq says, I was absolutely astounded by this scenery. But I did not have the courage to enter because there was water. One of the others whom Mu'taz had specially selected for this task said, I will go in. That is the son of Al-Askari alayhi salam, and I will arrest him and will take him to Mu'taz. Whether we kill him or not is a secondary matter. I'll first arrest him and get him out. But the moment he set his foot into that water, he found himself drowning. He found a current around him. He could not swim. He could not get himself out. He was totally helpless. He kept screaming. Rafiq says, I did not even have the courage to extend my hand to him. The other man did and tried to pull him out. Ultimately, they pulled him out and he remained unconscious. He remained unconscious for over an hour. Then he gained consciousness, but he was shivering, and he said, I will make no further attempt in this matter, and I will go back to Mu'taz. If Mu'taz decides to kill me, let him kill me. I'm going to die anyway. Surely here I am not going to survive in this water. There is no way we can reach this young man in prayer. So the other man tried, thinking that this man is now losing hope. Quite unnecessary. He tried to go in, and exactly the same fate followed him. He too began screaming. He too had to be pulled out. When that happened, they went back to Mu'taz and narrated the story to him. To complete that version of the narration, as I said, there are two versions. To complete that version of the narration, which is set out by Shaykh Tusi alayhi rahmah, when they went and narrated the whole story to him, they said there was no way we can get him, but there is no doubt he is there. There is no doubt that Al-Askari alayhi salam has left his son, and he was there. We saw him in prayer. And there isn't another person we would see in prayer in that fashion, except one from the household of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny. Mu'taz now is baffled. He does not know what to do. He says, well, I cannot punish you for this because you have done your best, but have you narrated this to anybody? They said, no, nobody knows. So he says, well, don't say this to anybody at all. See, all these problems we have had, the Shias have had till today, and the questions that are asked, but why is this not clear to us, and why is that not? Why are so many people still believing in Muawiyah? Why are so many people not believing in the 12 Imams that we believe in? All these questions are answered by this truth, that the truth regarding our Imams alayhimus salam was being concealed by those in authority. And those who had the information were too apprehensive of those in authority to be able to reveal these facts. And they were told, do not open your mouth. And if you reveal this episode to anybody and it comes to my knowledge that you did, then I will instantly execute you. And indeed, Rafiq says, all my life I did not mention this to anybody. And the first time he mentioned it to Sheikh Tusi alayhi rahmah was after Mu'taz was murdered. It was after his death that this episode came out. Another version that is reported in Mulaqat Imam says that when they were busy with the first person who was unconscious, suddenly this person completes his prayers, goes into sajda and moves out, walks on the water and moves out, turns to them and says, "What do you want? What are you doing here? What are you doing in my house?" They were not able to answer him at all, and he just walked out, unapprehended, unstopped by anybody at all. He walked out, and as he walks out, these people are busy with this person. When he gains conscious, they go out and they meet this watchman again. When they meet this watchman, they turn around to the watchman and ask him, "Where is Sahibud Dar?" He says, "Well, didn't you see him? He's just left. You went inside. Why didn't you meet him? Why didn't you speak to him? But he has just left. I saw him leaving the house. And I didn't tell him about you because I assumed that you had already met him." That was the way that version is completed. But whatever the version, you can see that this particular episode establishes 2 or 3 points at a go. The point I am seeking to establish tonight is the miracles that he performed, and how he was able to be seen praying on water, that water guarding him in his ghaibah. And indeed, if he did move out according to the second version, he moved out with that authority miraculously, that people who were there to stop him and apprehend him and were fully armed were not able even to touch him. But it takes me back to what I was discussing last night. That is complete proof of the existence of the Imam alayhi salam, that not only was he born, he was there. He was there during that ghaibah, that is what we call ghaibah al-sughra, and was seen by the very enemies of the Imam alayhi salam, and the version we get are from those very enemies of the Imam alayhi salam. Indeed, a number of such versions exist. This is just one that I put forward to you from Sheikh Tusi, but there is another one that comes from Ibn Shahr Ashub. He says that again Mu'taz sent another group of people to arrest the 12th Imam alayhi salam, and they went to his house again in Samara. But the glorious thing is that despite all this, the Imam alayhi salam at that stage had not moved out of his house. There is abundant of evidence that he still lived in the house. The house, as I mentioned last night, purchased by the 10th Imam alayhi salam, and we discussed this when we were discussing his life, purchased by the 10th Imam alayhi salam, which was inherited by the 11th Imam alayhi salam, and now the 12th Imam alayhi salam living there. So they go there. The leader of this group that went to arrest him was called Nasim. They got to the house. They then had to decide on a strategy, how to deal with it. They decided they will barge in. When they barged in, they suddenly saw a luminous looking young man, and he came out with an axe in his hand. He had an axe in his hand, and with his waving his axe in his hand, comes to these people and says, "What are you doing in my house? Who has given you the authority to enter the house? And what manners are these that you enter my house without permission?" And indeed, we do not enter his house even today without permission. We always recite the Izn Dukhul before we enter the haram of the 10th Imam alayhi salam, and also in the Sardab there is a specific Izn Dukhul. Not only that, there are various maqamat in the world. In the world, I say, various maqamat, and each of them is known as maqam Sahibul Asr. There are various maqamat in Iran. The most famous one is, of course, in Qum, Masjid Jamkaran. There are those maqamat in Hilla, maqam Sahibul Asr. There is a maqam very near the haram of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala. There are maqamat in Kufa, in Masjid Kufa itself. There is a maqam in Masjid Sahla known as maqam Sahibul Asr. A number of them around the world, and each has its own authentic history. But we do not enter even one of those places without seeking his permission. And it is only after Izn al-Dukhul that we enter those places. He questions these people. What manners are these that you enter without seeking my permission? And these people, Nasim says, he got so bewildered by all this, became so frightened that he said, we apologize, Yabna Rasulullah. We appreciate this is your house. We apologize for having trespassed into it, and we will go away of our own accord. And they left the house. They had the man right in front of them that they wanted to apprehend, but could not apprehend. Miraculously, they were totally helpless. They went out. When they went out, somebody raised a query, but was he the Muhammad salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi that the Shias say is the son of Al-Askari alayhi salam? And so they waited, and suddenly someone comes out, and when someone comes out, they stop him and say, we saw that gentleman with an axe. Did you see him speaking to us? And he said, yes, of course I saw him speaking to you. What is wrong about it? And they said, no, it's not wrong about it, but who was he? He said, well, he told you who he was. He is the owner of the house. He is the person whose authority you needed to enter the house. Well, obviously then, he must be the 12th Imam alayhi salam, because he was the only living person with the authority in respect of the house. So they then ask him a specific question. So is he the son of Al-Askari alayhi salam who has inherited the house? And he says, of course. Didn't you recognize him? Didn't you meet him? What is your problem? And they said, no, look, we do not have any problem. We're just going away. And they left for the place and reported the whole episode to Mu'taz, saying, we simply did not have the courage to arrest him. That is the way in which he miraculously escaped arrests in his time, sustaining his ghaibah and also averting all these enemies who were out to apprehend him. But apart from this unique function, and I wanted to set out a couple of those episodes to you, I wish now to move on to, as I said, I'm picking up only specimen of these miracles appertaining to him. I want to move out to another duty that the Imam alayhi salam has. There are certain duties that only an Imam of the time can perform and nobody else can perform. For example, if Hajar Aswad is removed from the corner of the Kaaba, nobody can replace it except a Ma'soom, except one who is a Hujjatullah at that point in time. And there is sufficient evidence on this. Well, in Ghaibat Kubra, if that situation arises, when the Imam alayhi salam is in Ghaibah, who would perform that function? Would the Imam alayhi salam perform that function in Ghaibah? And the answer is a dogmatic yes. That when that sort of a situation has arisen, the Imam alayhi salam has come out openly, has manifested himself, and has indeed served the Hajar Aswad and put it in its place. For my first proposition, that nobody can put it in its place except a Ma'soom, let me give you a couple of proofs and then we move on to the 12th Imam alayhi salam. You remember very well, and we have discussed this too, in 1998, in the time when, just before the public announcement by the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny of his prophethood, the Kaaba was attacked and Hajar Aswad was disturbed. Then they decided to put the Hajar Aswad back into its place. Various leaders were called upon to put Hajar Aswad in its place, but it would not be placed in a stable manner. It always shook and was unsafe. Everybody feared it will drop and be broken into pieces. Ultimately, everybody said, the only person we can rely upon to do this job is our Sadiq and Amin. And the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny, is called in. And he, with his pious hands, put the Hajar Aswad in its place, and it got stable in the place where it ought to be. Short of him, none could place the Hajar Aswad in its place. That sort of a situation arose also in the time of the 4th Imam alayhi salam. And we have discussed this event at length when we were discussing the miracles of the fourth Imam alayhi salam. That was a time when Yusuf bin Hajjaj, as you remember, attacked the Kaaba in the time of Abdullah bin Zubair. The Kaaba was badly destroyed. Hajar Aswad was removed from there. And indeed, the Kaaba was ransacked by Hajjaj bin Yusuf, using a catapult, as we discussed in length on that occasion.